welcome to Tricks of the Asteroid channel. Today is the 14th of August 2018. On today's video, we're going to be talking about something that a lot of people may have noticed, but they don't quite understand. And what led to us making this video and taking the time out to speak to, the people who are interested in the truth, is a very nice conversation that we had with one of the publishers of a Bible that's called the Sefar Bible. So if you guys are aware of the fact that we always talk about the Bible and we always recommend people to study the Bible because it's not just a book, it's a history book that shows you how things are and shows you the creation of things, where we are and where we're going. So today's video, if anybody has picked up looked at the title, it's gonna be named something like Kiss and Tell the features of the Pope Antichrist. So when a lot of people hear that word Antichrist, their brains go haywire and they try to they get scared and all that kind of stuff. The word just means a substitution for Christ, or somebody who stands in the place of Christ. So that's just what it means in let's say in the best simple terms that you can understand the word. So that's just what it means. And also the reason why the name of the video is titled that way is because, like I said earlier, we had a very nice conversation with the people who brought about the Sefar Bible. Maybe you guys have heard about the Sefar Bible or not. But the Sefar Bible is a Bible that came out from by a man called Stephen Pidgeon, and we're gonna point you to Stephen Pidgeon in a minute or so. And Stephen Pidgeon happened to try to bring back all the books that were removed in earlier Bibles. For example, when the publishing of the Bible started in 1560, all right, it happened to be it came with 81 books, and then later on the Vatican took out 15 books, okay, and we now have the Bible with 66 copies for specifically for the King James Bible as well as the Geneva Bible. So what happened is that Dr. Stephen Pidgeon, as his name is, decided to bring back all those books that were removed from the Bible, including the book of Enoch. And he also decided to put it in such a way that he restored the proper names of the people of the Bible. So for example, you won't find any Jesus in the Sefar Bible. You'll find Yehoshua or Yeshua. So he decided to bring back all the names, the proper names and context of the names of the people of the Bible, and also put the Bible in some chronological order, so that you would understand, like, the year and the flow, or when you read it. So, but we were very, very concerned about the fact, because we were wondering, who is Dr. Stephen Pidgeon? And when we looked up Dr. Stephen Pidgeon, we found out that he is a member of, the organized, system which is run by the Vatican, by the albino Vatican in place today. So we were very much interested in why the Vatican, because you have to understand that when you start trying to translate a Bible, you have to come in contact with manuscripts. And most of the manuscripts that the world's Bible is written in, besides the King James Bible and the Geneva Bible, which existed around the time that Europe was slowly changing from a black woolly-haired Europe to an albino one, most of the manuscripts today are all owned and all protected by the Vatican. So for you to have access to those manuscripts, because it's not like those manuscripts are originals, because according to historians and history itself, it says that most of the Bibles that we read, even the Geneva Bible, the King James Bible, and any other Bible older than any of those, are based upon copies, all right? So even then, The copies that we now refer the Bible to in today, according to historians, because we never know if it's true or if it's a lie, we're just telling you what they make us know. Those manuscripts are kept in place and housed by the Vatican. So for anybody to get into the manuscripts, to try to compare those manuscripts that we have now, you have to be higher up in the hierarchy of the Vatican structure. So we were very concerned about the fact, we wanted to know, because we're not saying you shouldn't buy the Sefar Bible if you want to buy the Sefar Bible, because it restores a lot of the names of the people of the Bible in the correct place, which we'll show you in a minute. But we were concerned about the fact that why would the Vatican at this point in time in history decide to bring about a Bible? Because when the King James and the Geneva Bible were written and published all around the world, the many of the publishers at the time were not in any sort of structure or organization as the publishers today, and most publishers around the world are controlled by the Vatican. So the Vatican controlled the publishing of those Bibles and took out the 15 books that each of those Bibles were written with, and gave us the 66 books that we now have in the 1560, or sorry, in the 1599, 1599, and the later editions of the King James Bible, in the 1599 Geneva Bible, and later editions of the King James Bible. So we're very much concerned. We wanted to know what was going on, and so because we wanted to get the Bible, so we reached out to Sefar.net, and because we want to know if the intentions of the people behind the Bible are real and genuine. And we asked them very simple questions, which we're going to show you in an email for you to see how that conversation went, so that you can understand the reason for today's video. Now, for any body who's watching this video is a continuation of some other videos which you have to watch, so you can firmly understand what we're going to say on this video, because it's going to be a very long video. So if you can't sit through a long video, it could take up to 3 hours to get done with this video. We don't know how long it's going to take, because we have so much information to share with you on today's video. So, but first of all, we want to point you, if you're watching this video, not to the first time subscribers, but if you're watching this video, there's another video you have to watch before you continue watching this one, and let me point you guys to that first. So if you're watching this video, you have to get on Tricks of the Estrade and watch this particular video. It's called Who is Sandra Denton? We titled it The Myth of Whiteness Part 10, but since we're trying to create a playlist for this particular series, we call it Mark of the Beast Part 1. Okay, we just labeled it recently, so you can get on Tricks of the Estrade and watch this, and you can also get on our Concert 2 and also watch this particular video. So this is the very first video that you have to watch before you can continue watching the one that we are making right now. And then you can also watch the Lisa Loeb's video. So there are two videos, but the most important one you have to watch is this one right here, which is called Who's Sandra Denton? Myth of Whiteness Part 10, Mark of the Beast. Then you can watch this, because this will be added as a part 2 to the playlist. So those are the videos you need to watch first before you can watch this particular video. So let's move on. So to start with, the reason for this particular video, like I said, is based on an email conversation we had with the publishers of the Sefar Bible. And let me just show you specifically the guys that we're talking about right here. So this guy here right here is called Stephen Pigeon. He is the publisher of the Bible, of the Sefar Bible, rather, Sefar Bible. So if you notice right here, let's just read some things about Dr. Sefar. And you could pause the video at any point in time, copy out this link, or just get on the internet and type out Sefar Bible, and this will surely come up, and you can go read about who Dr. Sefar is. But let's read and see what this man's all about, who's trying to put the Bible in the correct perspective, so that we can have a valuable reading when you read the Bible and then you understand it. It says here, the founder, president, and chief executive officer of Sefar Publishing Group LLC, Dr. Stephen Pigeon is a political scientist with a doctorate of philosophy. So he's a doctorate of philosophy. Okay, let's keep on reading. And an active attorney with a Juris Doctorate in the state of Washington. Can you see that? He's an active doctorate in the state of Washington. You don't just be, let me just make it very, very plain, right? You can be an attorney general in the United States without being deeply, I mean deeply connected with the Vatican, deeply connected with Freemasonry, deeply connected with the Jesuits, because all those things tie down to the world system of control run by the great-grandsons of Genghis Khan today. All right, so let's keep on reading. So you can see the person right here who's putting the Sefar Bible in place for us to read. Now, like I said before, all what we're presenting, the information we're presenting, does not stop you from going to get the Sefar Bible. You can go get it so you can, see the names, and they put some other books there, but who knows what they're doing. But you can just go get it just to see what's in there, right? So you can know. So let's keep on reading. It says, in collaboration with a group of students of scripture, he is responsible for the creation and publication of the Eighth Sefar, a comprehensive restoration of sacred scripture in the English language. Dr. Pigeon is a student of many languages, including Greek, Hebrew, Russian, French, Spanish, and Italian. An avid reader and author, he has published over 30 books in the last several years. I mean, the Vatican here doesn't play in trying to let people know who this guy is, because 30 books, right? 30 books there just shows you that he's a Freemason. It's a Vatican code of numbers. For people who speed read will not get that. So let's keep on reading. It says, Dr. Pigeon has a long history of executive leadership, having formed and led companies in publishing since 1982, journalism, 1984, music publishing. He's in music publishing. The granddaddy of mind control, which the Vatican controls the masses today all around the world. He's in wireless telecommunications. Wow. Broadband acquisition and delivery. Wow. Fiber optic switching technology. Laser digital television development. Biotechnology and search engine optimization products. I mean, they're just showing you that this guy is one of them, because for you to be connected to all these sectors of the economy which are used to control daily life shows you that he's higher up in the Vatican. He's no joke. So let's keep on reading. It says, including the development of patented technology. In 2012, Dr. Pigeon was a candidate for Attorney General of the state of Washington. Wow, just like I told you before you can get up there, you have to be deeply rooted in the system of world control, which is run by the great-grandsons of Genghis Khan through the Vatican. Let's keep on reading. It says, he's the recipient of the 2008 Presidential Commission. Wow. Presidential Commission. Okay. The 2008 Reagan Congressional Commission, a two-time recipient of the Congressional Medal of Distinction, and a designee for the 2006 Businessman of the Year Award. Dr. Pigeon is distinguished in both who's who and who's who in business. He is active in promoting religious freedom, economic freedom, and civil society through the world. So he's not really interested in the truth, because according to what we are reading right here, he's more active in promoting religious freedom, not truth, right? Economic freedom and civil society throughout the world. So this is the man right here who brought about the Sefar Bible. But we'll just tell you the truth that it's the Vatican who brought about the Sefar Bible. He's just the face of it. Now, let's take a look at some of the things that they put together in the Sefar Bible to make us believe in the Sefar Bible, that it's actually a restoration of books that have gone missing. Now, the first thing you have to note here is that the Sefar Bible is put on the left-hand side, right? And then the next Bible that's running parallel for you to see the books that we're missing in, they're trying to give you a side-by-side comparison of all the Bibles for you to know the books that we're missing right here. So the next book that they put in this comparison is the 1611 King James Bible and the 1516 Geneva Bible. Now, that is odd. Why is it odd? Because for the unlearned who don't understand what's going on, you should know that the year 1560, all right, comes before the year 1611. So this is an earlier year. So this should have been the first Bible that they put right here in comparison. But why did they move this over to the second hand side? Because the Geneva Bible clearly has notes that tells you that the Vatican is your problem. So they know that if they put the Geneva Bible first right here and compare it with the Sefar Bible, that a lot of people are going to be curious and want to read what is the Geneva Bible about. But they don't want you to do that. Rather, they give you the 1611 King James first, because King James took out all the notes that the Geneva Bible had. So people will always refer to this Bible, which doesn't have the notes, to show you that the Bible, that the people who translated it and told you the truth in the 1560 Geneva Bible, that the Vatican was your problem. So that's what you're doing here, right? But regardless, now they show you all the books that are in the Sefar Bible that are not in the 1611 King James Bible and the Ethiopian Bible. Now, the Ethiopian Bible is one of the Bibles I would suggest that anybody should get. If you can get your hands on it, then you should. But the only problem is that the Ethiopian Bible is not a book, it's not a Bible that's commonly published, all right? You have to go down to Ethiopia to the I think the Orthodox churches over there to actually get the book, because the Ethiopian Bible contains 92 books in total. It has the highest number of books. So that means this is like the number of books that came out when the Bible started to be something that the public could read. And if you should know, the Ethiopians are black guys, right? Black woolly head guys. And you have to know that when Europe was black, that the Ethiopians were one of the first few people, like for example, who brought about Christianity and the worship of Yahweh through his son Yehoshua. If you read in the Acts of the Apostles, you'll hear about an Ethiopian eunuch that was preached to. So these guys who have the original writings, all right, of those, they have not the original writings, but per se, but they have the writings that are much more closer to that history of the Bible itself. So that's why they have so many books like this, up to 92 books. But these guys don't give out the Bible to anybody. I don't know. They don't make it public. So we would just want to love to see what's in these books, because a lot of us don't know what's in them. So this has the 92 books. It has the highest number of books. And if you notice, the original King James had here 81 books, and the Geneva Bible had 80, and some other books down here that a lot of people maybe don't really know about. And then the Sefar Bible brought the total of 87 books, including so many books that were removed. For example, like the book of the apocryphal books, and now it also restored the book of Enoch. All right, Enoch right here. So here's my take on it first before I show you the email. The whole reason for the Sefar Bible, all right, is trying to make those people who are woke to the fact, all right, that the names, okay, for example, that the name of God is in Jesus. The name of the Son of God is in Jesus. That his name is Yehoshua. A lot of people who are woke to that fact, they want to make sure that they can capture that audience by producing the Sefar Bible. That's my first take on it, all right? So that they can pull the audiences into this particular aspect of the Bible, but there is a catch. And I'm going to show you what the catch is and the reason for this particular video. So let's continue on. So today's video is called Kiss and Tell, with the features of the Pope Antichrist, for a specific reason. Because the people we're going to be featuring today on the Transvestigation section of the video happens to be from the group called KISS. Now, KISS was a very, very popular band or rock group. And let me see if I can get some more information and just point the viewers to those who don't really know about the group called KISS. and what they look like, because I think this is going to ring a bell when you see the pictures. Well, pardon me for the little bit of error that I did in trying to give you like the actual time in which Kiss existed. They were in the 90s band. You might say 90s. According to the histories here, it says that Kiss, often stylized as Kiss, is an American rock band formed in New York City in January 1973 by Paul Stanley, Gene Simmons, Peter Criss, and S. Freshley. So it kind of misses the name of Vinnie Vincent here. So I don't know why. I think was it? Let me see if Vinnie Vincent was later replaced um, by replace Ashley. I think Ace Freshley. Let me make sure I can get that information out of here. So it does say here when you could pause the video at any point in time, copy out this link right there, or you can just you go get on your search engine and type out Kiss band, and this is gonna come up. It says here that Vinnie Vincent, right, was a member of past members of the band. So the two people that we're featuring today happens to be Vinnie Vincent and Gene Simmons. They were members of the band called Kiss, and let me show you some images of Kiss, so you guys could maybe have some sort of recollection about who they really are. They may not be really popular in today's age, but way back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, Kiss was a very popular rock band. So, I mean, I wouldn't know the age range of who would have been listening to Kiss, but regardless, Gene Simmons is still very, very popular around in the media today, in popular culture. So this is the people. We're gonna be taking a good look at two members of this band, as you can see right here with all these images right here. And the first person we're gonna be taking a look at is called Gene Simmons. It says here Gene Klein, born Chaim Witz, Hebrew, born August 25th, 1949, known professionally as Gene Simmons, is an Israeli-American musician, singer-songwriter, record producer, entrepreneur, actor, author, and television personality. Also known by his stage persona, the Demon. So that's the name that he was known as, the Demon, in his singing days. He's the bassist and co-lead singer of Kiss, the rock band he co-founded with lead singer and rhythm guitarist Paul Stanley in the early 1970s. Now, when we're looking up Gene Simmons, there is something very particular that we noted. Now, Gene Simmons acted a movie with John Stamos, which we've already featured on one of our videos. The movie was called Never Too Young to Die, right here. Now, if you read the synopsis for this particular movie, which I'm going to read to you right now, it says, Never Too Young to Die is a 1986 action-adventure comedy directed by Gil Bedman, generally termed the B-movie. It stars John Stamos as Lance Stargrove, a young man who, with the help of secret agent Danger Deering, Vanity, also known as Dennis Matthews, must avenge the death of his secret agent father, George Lazenby, at the hands of an evil bisexual hermaphrodite, Velvet von Ragnar, played by Gene Simmons. So if you watch this particular movie, you would find out that Gene Simmons was portraying himself as a hermaphrodite. Little did we know that Gene Simmons was actually one, because we were wondering why is he looking like that. But now we know the reasons why, as we're going to show you with proof on today's video. So the next person that we're going to be featuring is still a member of that band, Vinnie Vincent. And if you read through, he says Vincent John Cusano, born August 6, 1952, a Vatican code of numbers right there at work. For those who are interested in the Vatican code of numbers, please get on Tricks of the S Trade 2, or sorry, Tricks of the S Trade or Concept 2, and look for the Vatican code of numbers in a video called the Lisa Lopez video. For the most detailed information, then please get a book. We'll leave all the information on the screen for you to do that. It says Vincent John Cusano, better known by his stage name Vinnie Vincent, is an American guitarist and songwriter. He's former member of the rock band Kiss from 1982 until mid-1984, during the band's transition out of the 1973-1983 makeup period. Vincent was the last member to wear a unique makeup costume configuration as the character of Ankh Warrior, a design created by Paul Stanley, until he... I want you to notice the specific tenses that they are dressing as a he. But by the time we get done with this video, you would wonder why they even did that, because it will clearly show that Vinnie Vincent was actually a she and was never a he. So those are the two people we're going to be featuring on today's video. And with that, let's get lay the foundation and work for what we're going to be talking about, so you guys can catch up to speed. So let's go. So for a lot of people who haven't noticed, if you're paying particular attention, you would notice that there is a growing trend that's putting people that of a mixed kind of racial background into places of influence and office all around the world recently. It's something that was never very common before, because we are always used to seeing albino or white people, as they say, being in places of influence all around the world. But slowly we're getting to see that there is a lot of like recently, it's something that's just started happening, let's say over the last, let's say maybe 17 years or thereabout. Like here, every now and then we have this sort of people of mixed ethnic background, because that's the right word to use. Mixed ethnicity background, because there's no such thing as race is a political motivation. It doesn't exist in reality, because there's only one race, and it's a black human race. So um, if you had noticed recently, when Barack Obama was being brought into office, uh, Barack Obama was touted to be a black man, all right, the first black president in the United States, which is actually false, because the people who started the United States were actually black, woolly haired European men. And Barack Obama is not the first black president. He's the first black president for those who don't know about real history, and they'll accept that. But if you guys really notice, during the time that Barack Obama um, was about to be president, a lot of people couldn't understand it. They didn't get accustomed to the fact that, a black person, because even though Barack Obama is a black man biologically, but technically speaking, in the standards of politics, they wouldn't say that Barack Obama is actually black. They would say that he's a mixed race kind of person, right? Because Barack Obama's mom was, an albino lady, and his father was from Kenya. So politically, in terms of political correctness, all right, they wouldn't label Barack Obama to be actually a black man. That's just fact, okay? But for those who see what he is, they would call him a black man, all right? Because if you notice all the actions of Barack Obama throughout his tenure of presidency, he didn't look like there was any person who was representing blacks very much well, besides just the fanfare that Barack Obama brought about in the Oval Office. He seemed to shy away from anything that had to do with black people, and this is one of the reasons why they say that the more things change, the more they remain the same. Because even though Barack Obama was touting change, there was nothing changed during the whole entire period. The prejudice and the racism that's heaped upon black people all around the world did not change. All right, Barack Obama did no such thing. So if you notice from that time period, because a lot of people, uh, for me, technically, when I saw Barack Obama being president, I had this funny feeling, in my gut. Well, I shouldn't be saying that, because I don't have funny feelings in my gut. I was just thinking out loud to myself and saying, there's something very off here, all right? And a lot of people may have wondered at that point in time, why, did Barack Obama get into being the president? And for a lot of people who know that, I mean, you have to be stupid to believe that Barack Obama, through his being such a great guy, and being through hard work and fortitude, happened to be the president of the United States. He was put there. He didn't get there on his own. He had no such power, because a lot of people know that Barack Obama's mom is directly related to the long line of alliances all the way down to Genghis Khan, his grandsons, and his generals who run the United States and run the world at large. His mother was related to all that, but that's a topic for another day. So let's get back to what we were saying, that if you've noticed throughout a past couple of decades now, that slowly it seems like, because it seems like doesn't necessarily mean it's true. We've started to notice that they're starting to put mixed people of ethnicities, not a full black person, but mixed. All right. So for political correctness, because like we said before, race is a political statement. It doesn't exist in reality. That you've started to notice that they're starting to portray a lot of people of mixed ethnic, or as they would say, racial backgrounds in places of influence. So for example, if you turn on your TV, you're gonna find like the Kardashians, all right? And the Kardashians all seem to be magnetized, right, to black men, all right, and having all this mixed children of ethnic backgrounds who are biologically black, but in terms of political correctness, they will say you're a mixed, all right? And then you will notice also that recently Meghan Markle, whose mother is black and whose father is an albino, one of the great grandsons of Genghis Khan's lineages, happened to get married to the Prince of England. So a lot of this kind of placing of people in political places has confused. It's like some sort of shadow, so that people don't actually. So that, for example, uh, a few very deluded people can tell you that race and racism doesn't actually exist because Barack Obama was president. I mean, they can say that technically as an argument, and you would not be able to argue against it because the fact would be there that Barack Obama was president. All right. And then they'll show you a few good examples and tell you stuff like, that Meghan Markle is a princess and all that kind of stuff. And the fact is going to be that they're going to call them black, but in terms of political correctness, they really aren't black. Does it make? I don't know if that makes sense to you. So, and what I want you guys to get from this is this: we are not talking about people who have children of mixed ethnicities or background here. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the fact that there is some sort of political situation going on, all right? When you starting to use race to step up your step or climb, or you're trying to use race to climb up the ladder of life. So that's what we're trying to talk about here. So for example, let me just give you a typical example right here. Let's say that you have a man, all right, a black man, and this black man is trying to get into politics. And for him to appear like he loves the people who run the system, which happen to be the white supremacists today, who run the world from the Vatican. This black man marries a white lady, all right? So what he's doing right there is using race, right, as a platform to elevate himself to his political, to his political goals. So that is what we're talking about today. We're not talking about people who have who are in mixed race, mixed ethnic backgrounds and relationships and have children. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It's very, very absurd for somebody to judge you based on who you procreate with. It's very, very wrong for anybody to judge you based on whom you have children with. It doesn't matter what ethnicity, texture, and color of hair the person has, or the color of the skin. It's very, very wrong to judge anybody on that, because you have some weird fellows like some of the Hebrew Israelites will tell you that marriage between people of different ethnicities or background is a sin, and they'll use the Bible and tell you all kind of absurd ideas and make you feel bad that you're in a relationship with someone who's not of the same texture of hair and ethnicity and color of skin with you, that you've done something wrong. That's very, very wrong. So there's nowhere the Bible says that. So people are people. And secondly, next thing you have to understand is this: you should not judge men and women, all right, who get together and have children for any reason. What I'm trying to say in the sense that when it comes to a relationship between a man and a woman, you trying to judge them or trying to understand what would attract a man to this type of woman or this woman to this type of man is going down a road that is going downhill. That's the best way I can put it. Because to be very, very honest, there is no way that you can understand, all right, a relationship between a man and a woman. The Bible even says so. So for you trying to, I mean, let me give you a typical example. I don't know if you guys have ever seen, try to pull two people apart because the relationship that they have looks toxic. And no matter what you do, these people still wind themselves up together. And the relationship is, because from outside the relationship is very toxic. Maybe the lady is treating the man so badly, but you still find out that they get back together and they're still together. And you try to pull them apart, but they're still together. Or let's say the man treats the lady so badly and you wonder why. A relationship between a man and a woman, and the choices that men and women make, all right, to be together or procreate, is something that nobody can explain. Even if they try to explain it to you, they still won't be able to do enough justice to explain to you why they're still together inside a toxic relationship. So the idea of trying to judge someone based on who they are, irrespective of the color of their skin and texture of hair, it's something you should not do. Men and women together is just something that nobody can explain. And let me just show you that. Let me read a portion of that from the Bible for you, so you can understand what I'm trying to say here. So to read that portion to explain that, that you should not judge, who men and women procreate with or who they be with, because it's something very, very absurd that even they themselves, no matter as much as they try to explain to you, you still won't get it. So you staying from the outside and judging things between two people, a couple, is very, very wrong. Okay, so I'm reading now from Proverbs chapter number 30 in the Geneva Bible. I'm going to be reading from verse number 18 down to 19. It says here, there be three things hid from me, yea, four I know not. The way of an eagle in the air. Is trying to say here that if you're trying to figure out how an eagle is going to fly in the air, all right, that you're never going to know, all right. The way of a serpent upon a stone. She says the way of a snake. If you're trying to guess how a snake is going to crawl over a stone or which direction it's going to go, that you're going to be guessing for days and you're never going to get that answer. The way of a ship in the midst of the sea. So he's trying to say, because naturally, way back in the day, when ships sailed, the ships sail according to the direction of the wind. They try to, sail with the tide. So wherever the wind would blow would be wherever the ship, or wherever the tide would go would be where the ship would go. All right. So if you were trying to judge that on the sea, it would be very, very difficult for you to know where the ship is going to go in the sea, because it's so vast and the wind blows and it takes it from one spot to the other. So that's what he's talking about there. And the last one he says, and the way of a man with a maid. So the right way to put this word would be and the way of a man with a woman. You trying to judge two people, a man and a woman together, all right? Trying to understand why these two people are together, why they choose to even procreate with themselves. It's something that you should never do. So never judge any couple, all right? It doesn't matter if they're interracial or not. But as long as it's a man and a woman, don't try to judge them about who they procreated with or who they are with. So that's one thing you have to understand, that is not what we're talking about on today's video. So you're free to procreate with whosoever you want to and whosoever you love being with, regardless. It doesn't matter. If you like the way they are, then just go ahead and be with them. So that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the fact that there are people getting into relationships to elevate for political reasons, to use that relationship or the race bias, all right, to elevate themselves as the Vatican is doing to us today. That's what we're talking about here. The political correctness of what the Vatican, how the Vatican uses race to influence our lives, especially interracial relationships and children. So, like we've talked about before, that we don't care about who you're with, or who you have children with. That's none of our business. That's your own private life. All we're talking about is the fact that people use interracial relationships to elevate themselves for political gain. So one of the best explanations I can give to you is the fact that, after explaining the fact that, let's say a man who's trying to get into politics marries a white lady, and and is using his relationship that way to elevate himself for political gain. And such people, let's say in that kind of relationship, all right, because it's a political motivation. If this man gets with a white woman just to elevate himself in politics so he can have some sort of public office and have a right standing with the white supremacists or the people who run the world in the Vatican, right? Now, if he says, if that man right there now says that he's for, let's say, the black community, all right, he's saying such things as, like, that he's for a Black Lives Matter quote, because that's a false propaganda campaign. But if he was saying that he's for all that, when people look at him, right, a black man with a white woman, then they're not gonna be so sure that he's actually for black people, because in terms of the political correctness, he's saying he's for black, the black organizations, or black uh, communities, and he's all for the community and what's going on, and how black people are degraded and maltreated and cheated all around the world, especially in the United States, right? When people look at him, he has a white wife, they're gonna ask him, we don't really think you are for us, because it doesn't look like you have the correct representation, because race has been changed into politics. All right. So it's more like somebody trying to say that he's a Laker fan, but he's wearing a Boston Celtic jersey. How does that work? Nobody's gonna believe you. So that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about in the sense that race, interracial relationships are being used for a very specific reason by the Vatican to control our minds, and we're going to find out. We're going to show you so that you can understand why this is the case. So that's what we're getting into. And so with that, we're going to start with a picture. So to start with Genesis of everything and show you with a picture of how we start that conversation. To start this story, for you guys to understand why we are finding so many interracial people recently, over the past maybe 2 decades or thereabout, in politics, and yet the fact still hasn't changed, that black people are shortchanged, killed, and ridiculed all around the world for the glory of white supremacy by the great grandsons of Genghis Khan. We have to start with a picture. We have to go back to the basis of where everything began, which happens to be in Asia. All right. So for the best up-to-date information on all this, you have to get it, because we're not going to be going into very long details. Now, what you're looking at the screen is a bit of a picture, and all the pictures that we're going to be using for this particular explanation is from a website called realhistoryww.com. We do recommend that you get to the website. We'll show you a link in a minute or two after we're done with all this conversation. So you can go take a look at the website and read some of the history that they have, because they talk about real history. The only problem that we have, it's not more like a problem, is because the history being told to us is still on the history being told to us on realhistorywww.com is still told to us based on the uh, the uh, the timeline and educational system that the albino Vatican has set up for us to believe history in. Because you have to understand that the reason why history is so complicated and people don't understand it is because they have thrown out the Bible, the real history book. So in all the educational systems of the world, when you're trying to learn history, the very first thing that the educational system, which is run by the Vatican, makes you do is to throw out the Bible. So when you throw out the Bible, you're going to be looking at that history view from the viewpoint in which the albino Vatican today wants you to look at it, and then you're going to get so many things wrong. So that's the only problem that we have with realhistorywww.com. But besides that, you can go there and read up on a lot of stuff that you'll find very, very useful in your quest to know real stuff and what's going on around the world. So a lot of these pictures that we're going to be using are taken from that website because they did a lot of good work to provide these pictures. So what you're looking at, let me just read this for you, because we're trying to go to the genesis of how things are the way they are today. All right. So let me read this particular painting that you're looking at and explain it to you so you guys can understand what we're looking at. It says a painted silk scroll depicting the black-skinned wisdom king Fudo Mayo, right? Black-skinned, the immovable one. Fudo is the cosmic Buddha. He is shown with two attendants, Seitaka, Doji, red right here. So Seitaka, the painting here is depicting two people. One is has a red skin, right? And you can, if you notice, the hair is a little bit more is straightened out, right? Red. And Kongara Doji, white. Kongara Doji white is this painting over here of this white attendant here in Japan during the Kamakura period, about 1280, which is about, let's say, 800 and let's say about this, because this 2018, about 818 years ago when this painting was made. Now what I want you to know this first, all right, is that this portrait of this king, or what they call here the wisdom king Fudo Mayo, or that this Asian right here, because Japanese are Asians, right, is very, very dark skinned. I want you to take a good notice of that. And the hair on his head is woolly, all right? Okay. Now the two attendants below have lighter brown skin, all right, and then this one has a very pale albanic skin, but the hair is different because they're all straightened out instead of the woolly one that you have here on top. So the reason for all this explanation is based on the fact that if you notice, I don't know if anybody pays attention to this. If you look at such people as Hispanics, for example, Mexicans, if you notice that the older generations of Mexicans, people who are aged, let's say 60 years and above, have very darker skin, even though their hair is straight, right? If you notice, when you go back to the older generations of Hispanics and Mexicans, you find out that they have much darker skin. But the newer generation of Mexicans and Hispanics today have a very pale albanic skin. The reason why is because if you go into the history of Hispanics, removed about, let's say, 2 or 3 generations from now, you find out that there were all black woolly haired people before the new Europeans who happened to be albino went into the Hispanic world, raped and killed a lot of black woolly haired people and bred a lot of Mexicans out. Even though they used to have a few number of Mexicans with woolly hair surviving in Mexico and the Hispanic world all around, in such places like maybe Argentina and Guatemala and all those kind of places. But I just want you guys to take notice of that. If you go like 2 generations, and from any Hispanics that are older or above 60 years old, you find that their skin is much darker, but the new generation have paler skin. All right. So the same thing also it was prevalent in Asia, because right now these are the way Asians look. They have a much paler skin, and we're going to show you some pictures for you to see that, Asians started getting paler and paler, and we'll explain all what this means in a second or two. So what we're reading here says, modern Ainu mulattoes wearing traditional Ainu clothing of Ainu tourist at Ainu Tourist Center, as in the Americas. The modern mulattoes, because of ever declining amount of original DNA, bear little or no resemblance to the original people. So we're gonna make you understand all what of this where we're going, but we just want to show you the pictures first. So let's go and take a look at some more pictures right here. So here is a picture of let me see where this one was taken. This happens to be Asians, but if you notice, these Asians have much darker skin. All right, and the hair is still straight, but they have much darker skin. Let's go to another picture. Here's another picture, and this one says here, a daguerreotype of Chinese workers during the California Gold Rush circa 1852. So that means even in 1852, the Chinese were still having a little bit of a darker skin, because they weren't so far removed generationally from, let's say, their black woolly haired ancestors. All right. Let's go to another picture right here, and here's a portrait. This actually I think a statue. It says here, Gobujo, 1780, one of the divas of the 8 classes and the 10 great disciples of Buddha in the Sutra, the Lotus Kofukuji Temple, Nara, Japan. All right. So you can see that this is a much more darker skinned Japanese man. All right. And at this point in time, the Japanese would have still been black with woolly hair. All right. And that's why the skins look so dark, like not normal black people. Now let's go to the picture right here, and this one was said, this one, it says here, let's see what it reads. He says, Japan, the hats worn by the men sitting on the left, and photo quality suggests circa 1870s. Now if you notice, some of these Japanese rather have mixed hair. All right. Now I want you guys to understand something about hair. All right. When you have mixed hair, because there's some people who say, all right, I'm neither white, I'm black, so I'm mixed, right? The truth is, if your hair is mixed, you're still an albino, because the hair is not woolly. As long as that hair is not woolly, that means you're still an albino. So some of these Japanese that you see here have some sort of mixed hair like this one right here. But what I want you to pay particular attention is the fact that the skin of these Japanese people here around the 1870s is much darker than what you have in present day Japan and the area of China, with Chinese as usual. So let's go to another picture right here. Now this particular picture is very, very specific. I'm going to blow this up so you guys can see it clearly. Now here is a picture of, let me see, I'm just blowing this up temporarily, then I'll give you the full, I'll show you the full picture in a second or two. So this picture is a picture of one of the great grandsons of Genghis Khan. All right. Now if you notice, I don't know if you guys can see very well, is that there are two very dark skinned. This picture right here is dark skinned Asian, and this one is also dark skinned. But here, this picture right here, the one in the center that I'm pointing my mouse at, is the son of Genghis Khan, one of the great grandsons of Genghis Khan, rather. So let me blow this picture up so that I can speak more about what I want to say. So here is the blown up picture that we were talking about. So what I want you guys to notice right here, I'm going to read some stuff from real history about this portrait so you guys can understand where we're going here, but we just want to show you the pictures first. So what you're looking at right here is, okay, let's just go over to the website and read it, then we can come back and explain the picture properly. I think that's the best way for us to do this. So here's a brief history of what we're going to show you from these pictures and where we're going, with the direction we're going, because we're trying to show you that way back, as you go further back, in time, that Asians who are now very pale skin with straight hair were much more darker skin, removed from their woolly haired ancestors, right? So we're reading from this particular website, that particular picture we wanted to show you, and Our website is realhistory.www.com, which we just advised that you could we recommended that you should go take a look at. Now, the from Real History www.com, it says here the Mongols. It says Genghis Khan. All right, it says here Genghis Khan came to power by uniting many of the nomadic tribes of Northeast Asia. Now, before I go further, I have to let you guys know that the man called Genghis Khan, his name was not really Genghis Khan. His name was Temujin. And let me actually pull the name correctly out so you guys can know that. So Genghis Khan's name was Temujin Borjigin. All right, that was the name of Genghis Khan. Now Genghis Khan just means supreme ruler. It's not really, let's say, a name. It's just a title that means supreme ruler. And don't worry about the, the portrait that you see of him right here. He was of much darker skin, howbeit a darker skin albino, because his hair was mixed black and straight, so mixed hair. So let's move further. So getting back to reading what we're trying to read, so you would understand what we're trying to share with the pictures. It was like the Mongols is a story about Genghis Khan. He says Genghis Khan came to power by uniting many of the nomadic tribes of Northeast Asia after founding the Mongol Empire and being proclaimed Genghis Khan. So he was proclaimed Genghis Khan, meaning supreme ruler. All right. He started the in Mongol invasions and raids of the Kara Khitan Khanate and Caucasus, Khwarezmite Empire, Western Xia and Jin dynasties, and Europe as far west as Poland and Hungary. Now, here's a picture. This is the picture that we were trying to show you, but let's read what the picture was all about, so you guys can understand. It says here that the picture is about Kublai Khan on a hunting expedition, painted on a silk hand scroll. This scroll was painted in the year 1280 AD. 1280 AD would be roughly, let's say, about give or take about maybe 800 years, about let's say 775 years or thereabout till today, by the Chinese court artist called Yu Guandao. Now it says here, the story about Kublai Khan here in this painting says that Kublai Khan was the fifth great Khan of the Mongol Empire from 1260 to 1294 and the founder of the Yuan dynasty. As the second son of Tului and Sogakatani Beki, and a grandson of Genghis Khan. By the time of Kublai Khan, the racial makeup of modern China is well on the way. From the partial scroll on the right above, we can see that Kublai Khan's wife is very pale. So that's what the portrait is trying to explain, which we want to blow up and show you, right? And from the full view of the scroll on the left above, we can see that of the 8 representatives, there's actually 10 representatives, but maybe he's right. I don't know if these ones are just horses and not real people. But let's go by what he says. He says there are we can see, he says that where did I stop? It says okay, let's continue from where I read. Stopped. I said, we can see that Kublai Khan's wife is very pale, and from the full view of the scroll on the left above, we can see that of the 8 representatives of the various tribes, only 2 are pure black men. The scroll painting is located at the National Palace Museum, Taipei. All right. So pure black men here is talking about that their skin was naturally was darker. Right. That's just what it means. It doesn't mean that there are pure black men, because Genghis Khan and the people who raided all through the area of Asia down into Europe had mixed woolly hair. They were not they were not black men, right? They were albinos but mixed with much darker skin. So here's what we're trying to the picture's blown up here, so you can actually see clearly that this is Kublai Khan referred to that we just read, and this is a wife who's much paler, and you can see that they are much darker skinned. Let's scroll to the right, and this is the darker skinned man that the portrait talks about, as you can see right here, and another one. So with just 2 of them, right? So what this portrait is trying to portray to you is that that by this time of Kublai Khan, right, that the racial makeup was slowly changing, because you have only 2. If this picture is made up of 8 people, only 2 of them had much darker skin. All right, than Kublai Khan right here. So let's go back to some other pictures just to show you what we're trying to talk about, to show you how the in way back, in history, way back before the times that we are today, that Asians were not so pale skinned as they are. And we'll explain to you what's going on, and then from then we'll get arrive at the email conversation that we had with Stephen Pigeon, so you can understand the reason why we are having a lot of interracial people being portrayed to us in places of influence by the Vatican, such as people like Barack Obama, Meghan Markle, and what we see throughout, and how most of them take on black wives, black women, and raise all these mixed children. There's a reason for it, so we'll explain all that as we're going along. So let's continue with some more pictures of ancient days Asians, and this picture is taken in the 1900s. It's a wedding party in Seoul. That means Korea. If you look, the Asians right here, the Koreans rather, have much darker skin, even though their hair is straight, as you can tell from this pictures right over here. And this other Korean lady just has the painting, a Korean traditional painting on her face, but the skin is very, very dark. I want you to see that, right? Very much darker. Let's go to another picture right here. Here's a picture. This actually a picture, and this one talks about let me see if I can blow this up so you guys can read it with me. Let me see what I can do right here. It says here, one of the four statues of Black Samurai Yasuki by young South African artist Nicola Roos. The statues are made of old tires and inner tubes. One of the statues went to a South African collector, another to a New York collector. The third statue went to a foundation, and the final statue was sold to a collector in Mozambique. It will go on permanent display in Maputo. All right, so let's go to the because this picture is talking about a black samurai by the name of Yasuki. So now let's show you the Yasuki guy right here. Here's the Yasuki right here. Now, if we read this, what it says here from this particular page about Yasuki, says this photo is often used to illustrate the story of Yasuki, the supposed African samurai of the Japanese warlord Nobunaga Oda. Since Yasuki's time was supposedly the 1500s and cameras weren't invented yet, and the picture is of a Mongol, not an African. So who you're looking at right here in this picture that we presented earlier is a Mongol. So they were much darker skin, and the hair was still a mixture of straight hair and woolly hair, which still means that there are albinos but with much darker skin. As we keep on reading, it says the pictures of a Mongol, not an African. The picture's only true value is that it shows a black-skinned Mongol with a sword. Nothing particularly unique here. So that's Yasuki right here, was a black-skinned Mongol lord. So all the pictures I'm showing you is trying to show you how the makeup, the ethnicity of China was slowly changing from a much darker skin, woolly haired people to what you now have, which is much paler skin and much more straighter hair. So let's keep on showing you some other pictures. And this is the last picture. And this is a picture of sorry about that. This is a picture of Genghis Khan himself. So if you notice, we're going to blow this picture up so you can see it very clearly, that this is a much darker skinned Mongol. From the last picture we just showed you, that Genghis Khan was of much darker skin. Howbeit, he was still an albino because his hair was a mixture of woolly and straight, wasn't woolly like it would be for a typical West African. So he was still an albino. Now the story according to, let me actually blow this picture up and read the story, then we can come back and talk some more. So here is a blown up version of the picture. It actually says here, Prince Michael Shenigov, a Russian prince, was passed between the fires in accordance with ancient Turco-Mongol tradition. Batu Khan stopped him to death for his refusal to do obeisance to Genghis Khan's shrine in the pagan ritual. Note that Genghis Khan is depicted as a black man, painting by Russian painter V.S. Smirnov in 1883. So the story of this painting is that a Russian prince was killed by one of the great grandsons of Genghis Khan called Batu Khan because he refused to pay homage to this image of Genghis Khan's shrine. All right, now, so here is what we are trying to explain to you. Let's just let's just show you some pictures of, of what we already showed you what pictures of Asians today look like, right? But I don't think there's any need to show you any pictures of that, because you can get on online and look at yourselves, or you just look at the Asians all around you. They're much paler skin, and if you notice, the older Asians who are like over, let's say, 70 years old and above, have much more darker skin, and the younger Asians have paler skin. So why is that the case? Now, previously on a video, I think several videos on tricks of the S trade, we had given this analogy, and we also give this analogy in the book, because it's something very, very common to animal husbandry. All right. So the what you should do for this particular example is what if we you were involved in agriculture, because the one thing that the Vatican never ever mentions to people is that they should learn how to grow their own plants and crops. They'll teach you everything else. They give you false information over everything, but they never for one time mention the fact that people should learn how to plant their own crops and grow their own animals for sustenance. Why? Because that is the foundation from breaking away from all slavery heaped upon us by the great grandsons of Genghis Khan. So what why I'm using this analogy is this, so you guys can understand the story why that when you go back in history, all right, the albino Asians and albino people were much darker skinned, and then as you travel down to current history, they are much paler skinned with straight hair. Why is that the case? If you take two black goats, for this example, trying to explain this, I'm using an analogy now. If you take two black goats, all right, and you try to grow, an animal farm with these two black goats, what you will notice is that after a while, these two black goats will produce brown goats, all right? And after they produce brown goats, as you go, keep on, creating more goats from this particular, siblings and children that these black goats have produced. Over a period of time, the goats are going to turn white, all right? And when the goats start turning white, what you start noticing is this, that they start getting sickly. No matter the food, all right, no matter the care, the nutrition that you try to give to these goats, they start getting sickly, and they start having all sorts of like pinkish eyes and pinkish lips and pinkish hooves and pinkish everything. Why is that the case? Because albinism has set in. So from the two black goats that you started with, you now have brown goats and then white goats, and then they start showing traces of albinism. Okay, because there is no influx of any external genetic material into those nuclear family, and we showed you that before. Let me go back to one of those pictures in which we read that earlier, so you guys can see what's going on. We read it from here, in which it says that here, I don't know if you guys can see. Let me blow this up a little bit more so we can read it all together. Let me see if I can blow that a little bit more right there to the screen. It reads, he says, modern Ainu mulattoes wearing traditional Ainu clothing at Ainu Tourist Center as in the Americas. The modern mulattoes, because of ever declining amount of original DNA, bear little or no resemblance to the original people. So what happens here, the reason why with each passing generation, all right, you find out that people who have straight hair, whether they be Indians, whether they be Japanese or Hispanics today, is that they start getting paler and paler in skin. Why is that case? Why is that the case? Because the small melanin or eumelanin content that they had from the original forefathers, which were black and woolly haired, is deprecating with each passing generation, because they are not bringing in any black people, all right, into the fold. Now, why is that the case? Because like we've explained earlier before, and we've always explained on so many of our videos, Albinism is caused by inbreeding. So with the explanation that we use, that if you start with two black goats, you get brown goats, then you get white goats, and then albinism starts setting in. So that is what is happening. That that when you travel down from the older generations of people with straight hair, you find they were much darker skin, and all the way down they have on the newer ones now, or the modern day ones, closer to today's generation, have paler skin, because eumelanin is degraded when you are only getting in yourself or procreating, all right, with other people who have straight hair. Because you have to understand this: anybody who has straight hair today in this world, all right, is closely related to somebody else that has straight hair. That is just fact. That means their lineages are very, very similar and close together. So that is what causes that with each passing generation, that they get paler, and then they're gonna get weaker and feeble, and they're gonna start dying young. Now, the Vatican, the great grandsons of Genghis Khan who ruled the world through the Vatican, know about this, all right? But instead of them telling, people with straight hair, all right, that the way to save yourselves and your future generations is to procreate with black people, they won't do that. Why? Because if they do that, the straight-haired people who are already a minority in the world are going to be more of a minority. And when that happens, the great-grandsons of Genghis Khan can remain in power. So what solution are they trying to provide today? They're trying to provide solutions such as, you guys have probably heard about this: artificial intelligence, cybernetic organisms, and nanotechnology, all right? Because why? They do not want, all right, straight-haired people to procreate with black woolly-haired people and raise their majority and make them the population of people with straight hair to be more of a minority. Now, there is one thing you have to notice, and this is something that I have to make you guys explain because, make you guys understand, because it's something for the future, all right? Now, we started explaining, that's why we said that anybody who's watching this video needs to watch the Sandra Denton video first so you can understand this. We had started explaining to you that artificial intelligence is the mark of the beast that the book of Revelation talks about. Because once you accept it, all right, you're never going to come back from it. Now, this is the reason why a lot of straight-haired people, a lot of albinos, or white people as they should call it, because everybody with straight hair is white, all right, politically speaking, all right, they are going to love the artificial intelligence, nanotechnology, and all these cyber organisms more than black people. Because why? With each passing generation, they are going to get weaker. And a lot of them who frown and think that black people are actually the inferior species will not want to procreate with them. But in the future, a lot of albino people with straight hair are going to realize the problem. And most of them are going to choose to go back to procreating with black people to save their future generations, because this knowledge is going to spread, is going to become very, very mainstream, all right? It might be underground, but it will be very much well known around the world that the only way for you to survive if you're an albino in your future generations is to have children with black woolly haired people. And that is where the separation is going to come, all right, of people who accept the mark of the beast, as the book of Revelation talks about, all right, and give their power and lives to the system of the beast kingdom, because beast just means a kingdom, all right? When you get our book, we go into all that fine detail so you understand what we're saying. So that is where the separation is going to come, and the people who will receive the mark are going to be mostly, especially people who are albinos. That means people who have straight hair, because with each passing generation they are going to get weaker. In order to solve that problem, instead of them accepting the right way to go and procreating with black woolly haired people, will choose to go the artificial intelligence route. And only stupid people and only stupid black people who are deluded will also receive the artificial intelligence. And I'm going to show you, I'm going to play a video to prove what I'm saying, so it just doesn't sound like I'm talking. I don't think I'm going to play the video, but I'm going to point you to the video and you guys can go look for it and play it yourselves. So getting back to the story now, okay? So why is it that the Vatican is placing people of, mixed interracial, progeny into spheres and circles of influence all around the world recently? Is because of this particular fact, starting with number one, that Genghis Khan was an albino, but was a darker skinned albino. Number one. All right, that is the first reason. Now the second reason is this: in order for the world to be sorely deceived, just like Barack Obama was used to deceive a lot of black people around the world, they have to make the so-called Pope, who's going to sit in the third temple that's going to be built in Jerusalem, to have some sort of mixed interracial background, so that both black people can be deceived and albinos as well. This is the reason why, for all of this that's happening recently in the years, that you have so many of these interracial people being displayed on TV, which is far from the reality of the truth, because it hasn't changed the fact that blacks are still mistreated, are still being subjugated, still being killed, and still being marginalized in society by the system of white supremacy, or albino supremacy as we should call it. So when a lot of people, if you're white or you're an albino, you have straight hair, all right, you think that white supremacy is doing you good, it's actually doing you a lot of evil, because it's setting you up for a very bitter end, if not presently, in your future generations. So that's why we always talk about that white supremacy is the worst evil to ever befall mankind. It's a fire that burns everybody down, irrespective of the fact if you're white or you're black, all for the benefit of the great grandsons of Genghis Khan. So I'm gonna confirm the story of what I'm saying while reading the letter of that we had with Stephen Pigeon, which we started this particular video with, who brought about the Sefar Bible, so you guys can know that this is what's going on. Because, like we showed you before, Stephen Pigeon is amongst the hierarchy of the albino, Vatican that's running our world today. So let me read that email now and show you the contents of what's going on. So I'm going to read the letter that we had with Dr. Stephen Pigeon right here, or whosoever his representative is, for you to understand the reason why, the fact that they're trying to make us look at so many interracial, people on TV and get used to that fact, like how they presented Barack Obama to us, because Barack Obama was like a turning point. It was the perfect time for them to start introducing us into looking at interracial people they want to claim that is black, in quote, because they are black biologically, but their mindsets, right, and their political correctness are actually not black. All right, so that was the perfect time at this juncture in history for them to start rather introducing this to us, because they have looked at the declining population of people with straight hair and noticed that they're going to get weaker and weaker over time. All right, and in order, all right, to make us in order to deceive more black people into buying into the ideology of white supremacy, that is actually for them and that it's good, and that racism doesn't exist, that is just something that we all think about, that is really not real, because people like Barack Obama were in office and Meghan Markle is a princess and all that kind of stuff. In order to deceive more people, they started to make us believe and look at this interracial kind of people in places of power, because they've looked at, the future generations, all right, in their own albino populations, and noticed that over a period of time, all right, that these populations are going to get weaker and weaker and weaker by the day, all right. And in order for them to speed up the process of the new world order, that's why they're bringing in things like artificial intelligence, nanotechnology, and cyber technology, because it's a requirement that's going to be needed for a lot of albinos to survive in the future. Otherwise, they're not just going to live at all. So, but when they take this artificial intelligence, all right, instead of going back into procreating with black woolly haired people, they are going to be doomed for life. Artificial intelligence and all these crazy technologies are much, much, much more going to be much more acceptable, all right, and desirable to a lot of albinos in the future, because they are going to need it to survive. That is just how these things are playing out. So let's read this particular email so you can see the story here of how they're setting things up, because this is the whole idea for anything that's going on, which the Vatican is doing in the world today. Now, the email starts with my question to them, all right? And the question was, I would like to know what is the ethnicity of Yehoshua, the one known as Jesus, and please give me a concrete answer. There is no excuse for having a friend and not being able to describe what he looks like. If you had someone you love and cherish, you should be able to describe his appearance from his head to his feet. So based on this, please tell me, according to the books of your Sefar, what did Yehoshua look like? Did he look like West Africans according to the books written about him, or he looked like a Caucasian? Thank you. So, like I said before, we're trying to gauge, the reason why the Sefar Bible was invented, and why the Sefar Bible went a different route to reintroduce all the books that were removed after the first publishings of the 1560 and 1611 King James Bible, together with the book of Enoch, and why the names are now translated correctly, and not just a transliteration, but an actual correct translation, and also putting back the names of the people of the Bible and the chronological order of how the books were written. We wanted to know if this was possible, that the guys behind it were doing this in all sincerity and truth, because you have to understand this. The book, let me just give you an example. Okay, let me read through this and show you the response. Then I'll tell you that story at the end of the response of this Stephen Pigeon's email, so you can see what I'm trying to say. So after this question that I asked him, that I'm showing over here now, Stephen Pigeon, whosoever represents him, went on to answer the email. He said the only concrete answer I can give is how Scripture describes him. All right. Scripture does not give us a description of Yehoshua before his resurrection. So he's saying that when I want you to pay special attention to the words, because I'm going to show you how these people talk, all right, without giving you specific answers, because they're walking for Satan, all right. So at the end of this email, you're going to find out that he doesn't even believe in the ethnicity of whom he's representing, or whom he's saying he's representing by putting together the scriptures. So let's keep on reading. It says, the only concrete answer I can give is how Scripture describes him. Scripture does not give us a description of Yehoshua before his resurrection, all right? So he's saying that when Yehoshua was alive, all right, the scriptures did not say this is the way he looked or what he did not look like. Let's keep on reading. It says the books of Enoch, Daniel give us a description in a vision. So he's saying that how Yehoshua is described is in a vision. So that means a vision is not reality. So if you're saying that Yehoshua looks this way based on the vision, you're obviously wrong, because before his resurrection, there was no description of him. I want you to hear how these people talk and tell you lies, all right? It says, let me keep on reading. It says, it does not give us a description in a vision. of the resurrected Messiah before his first coming. All right? And Revelation gives us a description after his resurrection. Notice all three accounts are very similar. So he's saying that it did not give the physical appearance of Yehoshua when he was alive, but they gave descriptions of what he looked like after he resurrected or in a vision, and all similar. And all accounts are very similar. Let's keep on reading. He says, Yehoshua is from the tribe of Yehuda, Revelation 5 verse 5. You must remember that Yehoshua HaMashiach is the son of Elohim, the king and everlasting father and mankind's salvation. He's eternal and has no beginning. So he's trying to tell you that Yehoshua here is not someone, all right, that you could think much more as a physical being, that you have to think about him as somebody that's spiritual. That's all what he's trying to drive at down, that there is no physical description of Yehoshua that we should bear semblance to. So let's continue. He said he's eternal and is no beginning. His incarnation at Bethlehem is where the eternal word was made flesh, Yahukanon. So Yahukanon here is how the book of John, the actual name of the book of John, Yahukanon, chapter number 1 verse 14, the actual pronunciation of the book of John, which English is corrupted. And here is Shinnok. Shinnok means is Enoch. English says is Enoch, but the real name was Shinnok's description of the Messiah. He goes on to say Enoch 46 verse 1 says, there I beheld the Ancient of Days, whose head was like white wool, and with him another whose countenance resembled that of man. His countenance was full of grace, like one of the holy angels. And then it says, Enoch here 70 verse 12, with them was the Ancient of Days, whose head was white as wool and pure, and his robe was indescribable. And here is Daniel's description of the Messiah. Daniel 7 verse 9, I beheld till the thrones were cast down, and the Ancient of Days did sit, whose garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head were like pure wool. His throne was like the fiery flame, and his wheels as burning fire. Then he goes on to read again. It says, here's the apostle of Yahukanon's John's description of the Messiah. Kazayon is the actual pronunciation for the book of Revelation. So this is how the Sefar Bible makes you understand, gives the right pronunciation and the names. In Revelation chapter 1 number 13 to 14, it says, and in the midst of the seven Menorah, one like unto the son of Adam, clothed with a garment down to the foot, and girt about his chest with a golden belt. His head and his hairs were white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were as a flame of fire. Shalom and blessings. So he didn't give an answer. So in order for me to make him know that I know where he's going with this, I asked him another question, and let me read the next question that I asked him. I told him, you still did not answer the question. Yehoshua was a Hebrew, right? And the Hebrews looked like men today. So what did the Hebrews look like? According to the holy books, they lived in Egypt and intermarried with the Egyptians, and all artifacts show that ancient Egyptians looked like present-day West Africans. The book of Amos also says that they look like Ethiopians, and Ethiopians still look like West Africans today. Complete Jewish Bible, Amos 9 verse 7. So I quoted that portion of the Bible to him, which it says in Amos 9 verse 7, when it says, people of Israel, are you any different from the Ethiopians to me? And I also quoted the Bible from the Geneva Bible and said, and put it in very specific English, which says, are ye not as the Ethiopians unto me, O children of Israel? So I continued with my question to him. I said, so my question to you again is, what did Yehoshua look like if YHWH himself compares Hebrews to Ethiopians? He would not be stupid enough to compare people who have pale skin and straight hair as the current Jews have to Ethiopians who are black with woolly hair like West Africans. They have no similarities in appearance with the current Jews in Israel. So please give me a straight answer, as the book of Amos and all artifacts say, which shows what Hebrews look like. What was the ethnicity of Yehoshua? Was he any different from the Hebrews he came to save, and did not look like man today in appearance? I want to know before I buy your Sefar Bible to see if you're honest translators of the Bible in trying to correct the mistakes and order in which the holy books were considered, or you're still continuing in the work of man and Satan in trying to bring about a counterfeit book for your own purposes to fit the current political correctness that present-day Jews in the land of Israel are the Hebrews of the Bible. And here is the kicker, all right? That this guy, because he gave two responses to my email after that. So he said here, Okay, let me read the first response. So you get the first response he made after this, so you can understand what he was saying. He says in Matthew, he writes it as Mattiyahu because that's the right pronunciation for the book of Matthew. One tells you in detail his ethnicity. This is Stephen Pigeon to me saying this, but that doesn't answer the question. My guess, and that is all we have, is that he must likely show features from every one of us. So that is where the Vatican, that is the answer right there for you to understand what the Vatican is up to in presenting to us people who are of mixed race, as they should call it, who are actually black, but politically they can stand for saying that you're not because your mother or father is from a different ethnic background that's not black. So that's the story right there. So now the question here is this: for you to understand that how devious these people are, if somebody like Stephen Pigeon is saying that he is recompiling the books of the Bible in the proper order, putting the names of the people back in the correct way that they should be, and putting all the books that were removed back in where they should be so that you should have the Bible. If Stephen Pigeon himself cannot believe in the ethnicity of Yehoshua which he sees, do you think that that book is really written for your own good? Because the question is more like us today. We wrote a book called The Concealed Mystery, all right? And we don't even believe what we wrote ourselves in those books. Can you honestly say that we are for real and that we really believe the things we say? So that's more like the question. But this is what Stephen Pigeon is doing. Now, I'm going to pull some pictures up for you, all right? I'm going to pull a picture so you can understand, all right, that the Bible is very, very specific about the ethnicity of Yehoshua, so you would know who he is, all right? Reason being, when this so-called Pope is going to sit in the third temple that's getting built in Jerusalem, all right? He's not going to look like anything close, all right, to West Africans. He's going to be a mixture. So he's going to be one of those people that you look at and you say, he's black, he's white, he's Asian, he's this and that, just based on the features, because that is what they're working on, based on Stephen Pigeon's answer right here when he says he must likely show features from every one of us, which is not fact. Because you have to understand that everybody in this world came from a black woolly haired ancestor, all right? And the nature of human beings is black with woolly hair, and nothing of the representation that we have, that we are being shown today by white supremacy, everything and media around us. Now, let me read one more interesting response from Stephen Pigeon here for you to see some more lies, all right? So, in his final response to me, he said, I still don't have an answer. Can you believe that? Somebody who put together the Bible because he wants you guys to have truth says he doesn't have an answer, when the answers are right there. He says, I wasn't there, therefore I cannot tell you. Did Mashiach resemble West Africans? Possibly. His grandmother appears to have been the Queen of Sheba. His mother was Bathsheba, a daughter of Ethiopia. However, there were multiple generations in Babylon with intermarriages among the house of Judah. Furthermore, his Y DNA was divine. So he's not looking like a human being at all, right? With that being said, did he look like Caesar Borgia? No chance. Stephen. Now, why all of a sudden are we going to show you why they're starting to deflect from Caesar Borgia now? Because a lot of people are, because I told you before, the reason for the Bible is that a lot of people are waking up to the fact, all right, that the portraits that they see of Jesus Christ is not what the man looks like. And those portraits were portraits of Caesar Borgia. We're going to show you that a little bit of history in a minute or so. So they're trying to put this Bible together to deceive even more black people, because they think when they put all this together that black people are going to say, or people who are waking up are going to say, okay, so these guys are warming up to the fact that Yehoshua, right, was black with woolly hair. This is all what this deception is pulling people into. But so for the people who have benefit of a doubt, we just want to do a small exercise to show you so you can read for yourself. Okay, we're gonna go. Let me start over from the books of which shows the resemblance or the ethnicity, right, rather, of Yehoshua, because you have to understand these people. Christianity is a very false religion. If you people in other religions, all right, have definite knowledge of what their God looks like. For example, if you look at an image of Buddha, you talk to a Buddhist, he's going to tell you exactly what Buddha looks like. He's going to tell you the type of hair, the color of his skin, the way he sits. If you go to any other religion in the world, they know specifically what their God looks like. Christianity is the only one in which we have to accept that Yehoshua, right, didn't look like any man, but that he's God. Can you imagine that? I want you to think about this for a second. That you have someone that you love, your best friend, all right? It could be your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your wife, your husband, or anybody at all that you love. And someone walked up to you and asked you, the person that you love and adore so much, what does he look like? And you say, his appearance doesn't matter. I just love him for who he is. How are we even sure that you love who you love if you can't describe what he looks like? That is the crux of Christianity. Why? Because the great-grandsons of Genghis Khan want you to believe in a false ideology of whom Yehoshua, or the person they call Jesus today, looks like. They tell you that his appearance doesn't really matter. But when the Bible clearly shows you what he looks like, for example, in the book of Revelation right here, it says, and in the midst of this, let me try to blow this up so I can read it so you guys can see. It says here, in the midst of the seven menorah, that means candlesticks, one like unto the son of Adam, clothed with garment down to the foot, and girt about the chest with a golden belt. His head and his hairs were white like wool, as white as snow. And let me show you what it means, white like wool, so you guys can see clearly. So here is a picture of sheep, okay? It's from sheep that you have wool, and you can see what the texture and the hair, or what wool looks like from sheep right here. Now I'm going to pull two pictures side by side for you to make this comparison. Now here's a picture of a black man, right? And I want you to take a good look at the hair right here. Let me pull another picture of someone who is an albino, all right, with straight hair. Now I want you guys to take a very good look at this for yourselves. This hair right here, or this sheep right here, the hair on the sheep, all right, is it closer to this hair right here, which the Bible clearly states that he had hair on his head as white as wool, which means graying hair, white hair? Does it look closer to that, or does it look closer to this type of hair right here that you see, which is all straight in what the Bible says? I want you guys to think about this for a second. Look, take a good look at these pictures and make this decision for yourself. Is this closer to this one, to this sheep right here, sheep's hair, or is it closer to this one, straight hair of an albino? I want you guys to take a look and make that answer for yourselves. Because we all know that this hair right here looks like this one. And this is the hair that all black people in West Africans have. And it's in no like ways, it's in no way similar or close to this type of hair which is represented by all people who are albinos, because it's the hair straightened out. So this is how people, tell lies every day. They keep on being in denial because they don't understand that it's not about politics. It's about your soul. It's about truth. It's not about politics. Nobody is going to take away white supremacy from this world until Yehoshua comes back. So it's not a fight about white supremacy or albino supremacy as we call it. It's a fight for your soul. For your soul. So you are not in denial and make the wrong decisions and wake up in the wrong place. And there's one more request that I can make that you guys should do for those people who are always in denial. All right. Because when they hear this kind of stuff, they are always in denial the fact that anybody with straight hair, all right, is not an albino, and that white people or anybody with straight hair are just the way they are because that's just where human beings are. We come in all different shapes, sizes, and colors. Now, there is a very simple thing that you should do, all right, to find out the truth. I want you to go into the world, okay, and find us two people with this type of hair right here, okay? Two couples with this type of hair who have produced children that have hair like this, like West African hair. I want you to go and do this small little requests and find out for yourselves. If you can find two people with this type of hair, straight hair, who give children or who give birth to children who have hair like this, like West African hair. If this was possible, you would see it every day in life. Two couples, male and female, with straight hair, having children, not in vitro fertilized, which they naturally give birth to, that has black woolly hair. But it doesn't happen. It's only black people who give birth to people with woolly hair like them and straight hair like all Caucasians and the so-called modern Asians today. It's only black people who do this all the time. And let me show you and give you an example. Let me pull you to a picture so you guys can see that. The picture is right here. And this is of a Nigerian couple, right? Who gave birth to children, because this happens all the time. Black people give birth to children with both woolly hair and straight hair like, Caucasians do. It's only black people. And these are two Nigerian couples. You can actually pause the video and copy out the link and go read it up on yourself. Or for the full story as well, you can always get our book and get all the details you need. So it's only black people. And look at them right here. They give birth to children with both woolly hair and children who have hair like Caucasians or Asians or Hispanics today. It's only black people. You'll never ever find anybody with straight hair who gives birth to children that have woolly hair like this Nigerian parents in West Africa. So that is all you need to do. If you can prove that, if you can bring that proof, then you can believe such stories as the fact that Noah was a white man and that Native Americans in the United States of America today, who own all the casinos and gambling stations and get reparations paid to them, are the true native or the Indians that were here all along. Then you can believe those stories. You can believe those stories then of the people you find in the Amazon forest who have, straight hair, that they are the natives of the Amazon forest, because they are all false, all fabrications from the great-grandsons of Genghis Khan, who bred out all the black woolly-haired natives of the Americas, have taken the appearance, have taken the history, right, of black people and called them African Americans instead of Native Americans, which they are, and the true Indians of America. And they're still going on doing that and calling them slaves, even to even further make what the situation that's already bad far more worse. And they call them African Americans, when these people would never, they had no relationship with Africa in any way, shape, or form. So that's all you need to do. Just go. It's a small exercise, a very small exercise for you to do. Go find two couples anywhere in the world who are straight hair, that have given birth to children with black woolly hair, then you can believe that albinism doesn't exist and that people with straight hair are not albinos. But here is the fact right here: a Nigerian couple giving birth to a baby, a Caucasian baby as they would call it, and black children as well. So with that, let me get back to showing you the reason for that small. I know, because I was trying to say that I'm going to point you to the reason why Stephen Pidgeon said that you know, that Yehoshua did not look like Caesar Borgia, because people don't pay attention to details. And the reason why people spin all this web of lies, because everything has a reason. All right, not things are not just happening. There's a reason behind it. There's a reason to all the madness that's going on in this world. And let me give you some very nice information about Caesar Borgia that's going to blow your mind. So let's get into that. So I want to play a short clip about the Vatican. All right. The story that you're going to watch here for about a few minutes is about a librarian who's in charge of like opening the doors to the Vatican Library, Museum, and the Sistine Chapel. So I want you to pay specific attention to the words that he's going to say, because I'm going to try as much as possible to close caption it so you can listen. And from this clip, then I'll move you over and show you the finer details that you would not have understood about who Caesar Borgia is. So you can understand exactly why Caesar Borgia was used, or his painting rather was used, as the portraits of the fake person they call Jesus Christ today, who has blue eyes and, you know, straight, wavy, or blonde hair, as the case may be. So I'm going to play that short video, then I'll come back and start explaining stuff for you.
This is for me an extraordinary and special privilege. I have the opportunity to open these doors to all tourists coming from all over the world and visit the Pope's museums, but especially the Sistine Chapel, seat of the conclave since 1492.
Right. So what you just heard there was the librarian telling you that he takes very special, he takes very special feelings when he's opening the doors to the library, museum, and the Sistine Chapel, the seat of the conclave since 1492. Now, a lot of people who listen to that will understand the reason why specifically the year 1492 was used, because a conclave is the meeting of cardinals when they're about to elect a pope. All right. And specifically, they used the year 1492. Now, why did this man, this librarian, give us these fine details? So the first thing we're going to do is go take a look at who was Pope in the year 1492. That's where we start this little investigation in, so you guys can understand what you were hearing, because a lot of people will hear and not understand. So first of all, let's take a look before we get into who was the Pope in 1492. And look at the Sistine Chapel, the facts about the Sistine Chapel. You can just go on the search engine and type out Sistine Chapel right here. You follow my mouse and see what it's all about. It says here the 1492 conclave was the first to be held in the Sistine Chapel, the site of all conclaves since 1878. You see how confusing that is? That's how the great-grandsons of Genghis Khan confuse you with history, because reading that sentence, reading this whole entire sentence in one breath is going to be very, very confusing, because the first thing they tell you is that the 1492 conclave was the first to be held in the Sistine Chapel. Then he goes on to say the site of all conclaves since 1878. So which one is it? Because you said the site of all conclaves since 1878 right here, as this sentence reads, it means that the conclave for the Pope started being held in 1878. But you also say the 1492 conclave was the first to be held in the Sistine Chapel. So which one is it? Was it in 1492 or 1878? That's how the great-grandsons of Genghis Khan confuse you on very simple stuff, because they are trying to sell you an ideology that naturally anybody with common sense wouldn't accept. So they have to sell you lies, because if you're just reading through this, you wouldn't understand a word that was said. But nevertheless, let's find out who was Pope in 1492 and why this year is so special. So we did a small search. You can do that on your search engine as well, and just find out who was the Pope in the year 1492. So when we did that search, this name came up, House of Borgia. All right, so you probably know where we're going now, right? Now there's one thing I want you to notice, okay? If you read into the story of the House of Borgia here, it says the Borgias became prominent in ecclesiastical and political affairs in the 15th and 16th century, producing two popes, Alphonse de Borgia. Now I want you guys to pay very specific attention to the words and the letters and the spelling. All right, it says the Borgias became prominent. The name starting here is Borgias. Okay, became prominent in ecclesiastical and political affairs in the 15th and 16th centuries, producing two popes, Alphonse de Borgia. Can you see that the spelling is different? It's Borja, not Borgias. Did you guys notice that? Let's keep on reading. It says, who ruled as Pope Calixtus III during 1455 to 1458. Okay? Let's keep on reading. And Rodrigo Lanzol Borgia, spelled with a G-I-A, as Pope Alexander VI during 1492 to 1503. Now, the question we need to ask, why is it that in the histories that they're so much interested in telling us the site of where the Pope started being elected through conclaves in the Sistine Chapel in the year 1492? The reason is this: the first albino Pope, or white Pope, the first Pope that wasn't black with woolly hair, was elected in 1492. And that Pope's name was Rodrigo Lanzol Borgia. He was not of the house of Borja here. Why? Because the letter J never existed until 1524. And let me show you that. All right. So here's the man who invented the letter J. His name is Gian Giorgio Trissino. All right. Now, if you scroll through this page, you could pause the video, or you could just type out Gian Giorgio Trissino right here and go look him up. When you scroll through this page and read about the history of Gian Giorgio Trissino, it says here, heated discussions followed his 1524 essay titled Epistola del Trissino delle lettere novante e giunte nella lingua italiana, in which he proposed to reform Italian orthography by adding the following letters to distinguish sounds of the spoken language. Now, why is it that people who were speaking Italian for years will require need for some new letters? It's a logical question. Why would you require, if you've spoken a particular language all through your entire life, why would you require new letters? It doesn't make any logical sense. The new letters are required because you were not speaking that language. You introduced yourself to it and you brought another type of language into it. So this is what makes logical sense. So let's look at the letters that were introduced by Gian Giorgio Trissino here, because like we said, it was in 1524. Because when you go to the house of Borgia here, the first house is spelled Borja. So that means this name wasn't Borgia. It's not even close to Borgia, because you have to think about this. If you have a last name that's a family name, especially lineages that are meant or considered to be wealthy and powerful, you just don't go changing the name. But if you read through histories, you find that there's a lot of name changing in the houses. Why? Because they were changing from black, and the imposters of the Asian albino horde through the great grandsons of Genghis Khan and his generals decided to change the names of those houses that they were breeding out or killing out, and took upon those names. Because if you find out, if this story here tells you that the first pope that came from this particular house of Borgia was Alfonso de Borgia. So since we have found out that the letter, let me go back and read this stuff first so you guys can see. All right, so let's see. We come back to Giorgio Trissino's page to show you that the letter J got introduced in the year 1525, and that's when the name Jesus changed to Jesus. And we now have a letter J all around the world, which has changed the many names of the people of the Bible. So these are some of the letters that was introduced by the great grandsons of Genghis Khan through Giorgio Trissino here. It says here, new letter, right? It's written as an open E pronunciation, distinction from E, close E pronunciation. Note Greek epsilon, the minuscule, has become IPS standard. Another letter was the W, all right? Open O, all right? Distinction from O, close O, Greek omega. This did not stick. Now they said that this one that he did, a lot of people didn't use it, so that's why it's saying it did not stick. Now another letter that was introduced was the letter V, consonantal V, a consonant, right? Pronunciation is a distinction from U. Vocalic, it sounds like a U, but it's a V. In lowercase at that time, usually U was used for both. So the letter V was one of the new letters that the great grandsons of Genghis Khan introduced. Now back to the bigger one, the letter J, consonantal J. Pronunciation distinction, you can see as a distinction from the letter I. Vocalic I, right? This is the big one that got introduced in 1525. And the last one voiced as a Z, Z on voice Z, right? So if you want to read more about this, you can pause the video at any point in time, copy the link, and go read about Giorgio Trissino. So getting back to the house of Borgia. So that means the first pope couldn't have been a Borgia, because the letter J never existed in his time. Because remember, he said he ruled from 1455 to 1458. He was long gone and dead. So that means the pronunciation for this name would have been Borea. Okay? Now, if Borea is the Latin name, the name of the house, it would be in normal tradition for you to maintain this name. But as you can see right here, in the crest for the family house, it lists Borgia on top and Borea, because the letter J never existed at the time, below. Why? Because these guys are not the same as these guys. These guys are impostors taken upon a family house name that they never had in Borea and changing it to Borgia. All right? So that's what happened. It changed from black Borea to Borgia white. So if you scroll through this, so that's why the year 1492 was it's very, very important, because it's the year that the albinos from Asia officially started taking over the world from the Vatican. And their first pope was Mr. Rodrigo Lanzal Borgia. And the very first thing that this pope did when he got in was to make sure that they whitewash all the paintings of the man they call Jesus to his son Caesar Borgia, because Caesar Borgia was the son of Rodrigo Lanzo Borgia. Pope Alexander VI during 1490, the first pope that was elected in the Sistine Chapel by the albino hordes, the great-grandsons of Genghis Khan and his generals. And let me just show that in this particular page, so you can see that Caesar Borgia was actually the son of Rodrigo Lanzo Borgia right here. Let's scroll through the page a little bit and show you that information before we keep going. So we're right at that page right here. It's still the same page. You can scroll through. It says Caesar right here. Main article, Caesar Borgia. This is the man, as you can see right here from this particular painting. This is the man that's painted that, you know, the first pope from the albino horse who came into Asia and overturned it from the black woolly haired lords, right? Gave this painting. That's the very first step they did. Let's whitewash the painting, because like I told you before, I don't know if you guys have watched one of the videos in which we made that decision, or rather we told you rather that, you know, what Genghis Khan did so that he could write himself into history, that he preferred breeding out the lords, his black woolly haired lords, rather than killing all of them. So what he would do is, when he walked into, maybe he overtook a place, instead of outrightly killing the king, right, he would kill the king, right, and maybe keep the queen, and then, you know, rape or sleep with the woman to breed children, so that he would tie himself in to their lineages. Or they would kill the king and the queen and take the princesses and marry them and breed them out, so the children would have lineages to Genghis Khan. So that's what they did, whitewashing history all throughout. So that's what the Rodrigo Lanzo, the father of Caesar Borgia, did. So when they came in, the first thing they did was, okay, let's just whitewash the history, because you have to understand that the man they call, you know, that the Europeans were all pagan. So when you see the name, even though you would see the pictures of the person they call Jesus as a black man, they were all pagan because they were involved in sun worship. All right. So they said the very first thing they needed to do was, you know, let's just take out, be our own God, and put our own in Caesar Borgia, because he was the first white pope to be sitting in the Vatican. All right. So that's Caesar Borgia for you, and you can read. He says Caesar was Rodrigo Borgia's second son with Vanonsa de Catanei. That's it. You can, if you want to read more about the story of Caesar Borgia here, you can pause the video at any point in time, copy of this link, or just go type in House of Borgia right here, Borgia, and you can read so much of that history. So that is the reason why, all right, you have to pay attention to what you hear, the finer details, so that you can understand what's really going on in your world. Because like we've presented to you the reasons for us seeing so much of, you know, the fact that they are portraying to us a lot of mixed race children, and for political purposes, so that so many people can be deceived and get accustomed to the fact that the Pope who's going to sit in the third temple is going to be a mixture of black, white, and so many other ethnicities around the world, so that people can accept him as a god, which he will declare himself publicly. Because right now, there is no Pope who has publicly declared himself to be God. They do it in private, all right? And even the written orders of the Roman Catholic Church declare them to be so, all right? But none of them publicly declare it. But this particular Pope who will sit in the third temple will say that he is God publicly, announce it to the whole world through CNN or whatever media that will exist at that point in time. So all what you're doing is trying to get us set up for that, to accept people of mixed racial or ethnic backgrounds like Barack Obama, and now we now see Meghan Markle and so many and so forth that will come on. as we keep on, as time keeps on passing, as we get closer to the time that the third temple will be built and that Pope will sit in there. And also we showed you historically the reason why that when the Asians, all right, that way back in history they were much of darker complexion, but now they're getting paler and paler, getting weaker and more feeble because they keep on lacking as each generation keeps on going. They are only procreating with themselves, and the eumelanin content is getting degraded more and more. For all that information, you get a book so you can have the best information whatsoever. And so with that, as we get into the future, a lot of people with straight hair will start noticing, will come to this reality and the truth of the reason why they're getting sicker and feeble every time, all the time, with each passing generation, no matter the quality of food and life that they attend, is because of a lack of eumelanin. And so many of them are going to want to join themselves to black woolly haired people to procreate and have children for future generations. The people who are going to be awake are going to do that. The people who don't want to do that, because the Vatican will try to stop this as much as possible. That's why they are going the route of artificial intelligence, nanotechnology, and cyber technology, because that's the only thing that's going to provide strength to people with straight hair as each generation keeps going on in the future. And those who accept that will accept what the Bible calls as the mark of the kingdom, or mark of the beast, as the Bible puts it together. So artificial intelligence will be the only way that people who have straight hair origins are going to survive in the future. That's why you find out in today's world that white people or people with straight hair origins find technology so appealing. They put their whole lives into it because there's a purpose for it. But the Vatican doesn't want to let you know that it is to maintain a population that looks like them, so they can maintain power, because with each passing generation they're going to get weaker because they are suffering from a degradation of eumelanin every generation, because they are farther away from what humanity should be like, and they don't want to be that way. So that's where it's going. So that's the whole story. And before I go, let me point you to that video which I said that you should go watch. I'm going to show you the minute mark that you start watching the video. The movie rather, is called Ghost in the Shell. It was made in 2017 and stars Scarlett Johansson. All right. This is you could pause the video at any point in time, copy out the link, or just get in your search engine and type out Ghost in the Shell, right? 2017 film, and read the story about it. Now, when you watch the video, or the movie rather, watch it from the 9-minute mark right here that I'm showing on the screen. When you watch, you're gonna hear, it's gonna be some sort of scenario in which there is some sort of president from the African Federation, and he's going to be talking to somebody who's from a different federation, and obviously the person who he's going to be talking to is going to be an albino, a white man, or whatever the case might be. And these guys are going to be trying to sell them, cyber technology, artificial intelligence, and all of that. And the black guy, the black federation, or the chief of the African Union, or whatever the case might be, is going to tell him that they do not want so much enhancement because it messes with your soul. You will hear that specifically because you don't know what all this artificial intelligence is doing to your soul. So artificial intelligence is going to be highly appealing to people with straight hair origins with each and every passing generation because of the weaknesses they're going to be developing. But black people usually will not accept it because they're still going to be strong, because they are not procreating with the nuclear family, which is the reason, the case that that brings about people coming out with straight hair. They are not going to be procreating with their nuclear family, but they're procreating with other people who are not of the immediate nuclear family, as the reasons is for people coming out with straight hair, as it happened in Asia and is being spread all around the world to many different parts. So please watch this movie. It's very, very important that you should watch it. Watch it from the 9-minute mark right here if you want to hear all that information, into like the 11th minute mark or 12th minute mark, and you hear all that. So with that, let's switch gears into the transvestigation because this video has been running too long, so we can wrap it up. Okay, let's go. So if it's your first time on our channel and you're watching Tricks of the Astray 2 right here, which we hope that there shouldn't be any first timers in Tricks of the Astray 2, because this is a specially refined channel from Tricks of the Astray. So Tricks of the Astray 2 is much more focused on those who have an idea and an understanding of the whole story, and especially for those who have gotten the book, because Tricks of the Astray 1 was for Tricks of the Astray rather was just for the general public, just to bring them gradually into truth. And this one is focused on those who have the truth, who understand the whole story. But for anybody else who just browsed through the channel and you got to this part and you listen to all that, in order for you to have a firm foundation of what the videos are about, you have to get on the channel and look for the video that's called Primer. There's a playlist for it also called Primer right here. I'm hovering my mouse right over it. When you get on Tricks of the Astray, you see that playlist. There's about 4 or 5 videos inside the playlist that you have to watch. The most important that you have to watch first is the Primer video and the Primer 2. And then you have to watch the Theory of Surrogates and the Theory of Surrogates 2. So you can have a basic foundation to understand what we're talking about. Otherwise, it's going to be like, a smoke in the wind, which you can grasp. So please watch the Primer videos first and the playlist before you watch any other videos if you're new on the channel, which we don't expect that anybody should be. But regardless, if you are watching any of our videos, you have to look for the Primer videos and watch that first. So with every video that we have, there's always a link in the description section. I'm hovering my mouse right over it. This link in the description section is going to take you to a document. The document is called Male versus Female Visual Differences. We advise that you download this document for your own benefit and print it out into a hard copy format so you can save it, because it's it's of a necessity that you have all our documents in a hard copy format, because like we've said before, with each passing generation and for each passing generation as we get into the future, a lot of information is going to be corrupted and is going to be controlled solely by the Vatican, such that truth will be very, very hard to come by. So in order to save this information for future generations, please always print any of our documents and also get our book, which we put all this history together so you can have a firm understanding when you're studying your Bible, so you can understand what was written there. So that's why we put all this hard work in to provide this information for you to save for the future. So let's get into the transvestigation and show you the visual differences between male and female. Now, the only difference between a man and a woman is this: a woman is able to give birth and a man is not. And because a woman has the ability to give birth, her skeletal structure is designed in such a way to accommodate that. So because of that, a female has an arch in her back. Now, why is a woman's back arched? Is because her pelvis is tilted forward. So the spine has to accommodate that pelvic tilt, thereby making the back of female to have an arch. And why does a woman have a pelvic tilt? A woman has a pelvic tilt forward so that a baby can stay inside the womb for the 9 months of conception that a baby goes through. So without a tilted pelvis forward, no female would be able to get pregnant. So all females have a pelvis that's tilted forward. Some will have a subtle tilt and some will have a very pronounced tilt. But regardless, every woman has a pelvic tilt forward. Otherwise, she can't be a woman. All right? So also, because of that, the way a woman's back is shaped like a C. That means there's an arch in a female's back because of the pelvic tilt, and that arch is extra support so for the weight of pregnancy, so that the weight of pregnancy can be distributed across the body, evenly, without the woman having any problems walking, working, and hurting the baby and herself as well. So if you want to draw the back of a female, all right, if you draw it from below the shoulder blades, it's going to form a deep C arch in the back. If you draw it from high above the shoulder blades, it's going to form an S-shaped arch in the back. And that's how a woman's back is shaped. So always remember those two letters, S or a C. For males, males have a straight back. So a man's back is going to be shaped like a D or a P, but there's no arch in the back. If a man's back wants to arch, he's going to arch outwards into the shape of a D or a P, but a straight back into the pelvis with no arch. All right, so you always have to remember those two letters for males, shaped like a D or a P. Now, you can base anything, all right, in trying to differentiate the gender based on the secondary female or male characteristics of things like, brow ridges, large skulls, facial hair, square jawlines or chins, long arms or long torsos, or Adonis belts, Adam's apples, and long ring index or ring fingers. That doesn't really count, because you have to understand that the only way that sex is been determined in this world is from the skeletal structure, because nothing changes the skeletal structure. That's why from dead remains of human beings you can determine the sex, because sex is determined by the skeletal structure and not the primary, and not the physical, and not the secondary physical characteristics which you have on both sexes. So always remember that. So I'm going to scroll through the document just to show you that a female's back will always arch much more than a man. As you can see right here, there's a female kneeling down. She has an arch in her back. Her pelvis is still tilted forward. Scroll just to show you that it doesn't matter what size the female comes in. Size doesn't really matter. If she's big, tall, small, fat, curvy, or whatever shape you want to associate with a woman's body, there's always going to be an arch in a female's back, because without that, she can't be able to carry children to full term. So as you can see right here is a big woman to the left of her screen. She has an arch in her back and her pelvis is still tilted forward. A smaller female to the right of her screen, arch in her back and her pelvis is tilted forward. It doesn't matter if the female works out too, all right? She works out, she's taking steroids and growing a lot of muscle. Nothing can change the skeletal structure, because once it's set and determined and conception, nothing can change that. So you can see that this female has a lot of muscles here, but she still has an arch in her back because her pelvis is tilted forward. Another female who works out a lot, you can see all the muscles here, but there's still an arch in the back because the pelvis is tilted forward, and nothing can change that. So if you're on one of those channels which tell you that someone is a man or woman based on the secondary female or male characteristics of long arms, long torsos, Adonis belts, a brow ridge, a brow bossing, or let's say a jawline, square jawline, Adam's apples. If you're doing that, you're on the wrong channel, and you're always going to end up wrong, because you've got the primary wrong. The secondary that you think that you should be focusing on will always be wrong. And on this channel, you can't do that. So let's go over and play a video of one of the most important features, or important differentiating features between male and female, which lies in the hips. The hips of a female are designed to give birth. So because of that, the hips of a female are below the crotch, and that of males are above the crotch, because the genitals of a man needs to function at the optimal temperature, which is below the body temperature. So it is below the crotch, and the hips always determines where the end of the torso of the body is. So for males, it's above the crotch, and for females, it's below the crotch. So let's go move over and play that video so we can continue with the transvestigation of the band, the people from the band called Kissing Gene Simmons and Vinnie Vincent. So this clip is going to show you the location of the female hip, because this is something that's known all around the world through the many fashion designer houses all around the world. Because if they didn't recognize where the female location of the hip is, which is below the crotch, a lot of the clothes that are sewn around the world and shipped to so many different countries would not fit, because every person who sews clothes does know that the location for the female hip is below the crotch. So as you can see right here, the tape goes round, and the location of that tip is below the crotch, because that's where the female hip is at. So for regular females, you will notice that you start spreading from underneath your elbows, and the widest point will always be the hips, which are below the crotch. Now, there's no such thing as a shoulder to hip ratio which determines if you're female or not. The only thing that determines if you're female is the location of your hips, and it is below your crotch. If you're female and you find out that your hips are above your crotch, you have to understand that you were born male and someone messed around with you as a baby and made you to believe that you're actually female when you're not. And we're sorry about that. But for all females, the location of your hips is below the crotch. It doesn't matter if your shoulders are wider or your waist is wider. The location for your hip is below the crotch. Now, as usual, you would notice that the reason why females have an hourglass figure is because a female has a wider pubic arch. The pubic arch is the space in between the thighs, and that's for childbirth, so that a baby can have easy access coming out from the womb during childbirth. So that's why a female has much more wider hips. Because of that wider pubic arch, everything in the pelvic region of a female is now made to be further apart. Hence, the woman has an hourglass figure. The reason for that is because of the wide pubic arch and the hips, which are further spread apart for easy childbirth. So, and also because of that, a female has an acute Q angle. The Q angle is the angle between the hip and the knee, and for females is much more acute because of the wider pelvis and the hips, which are now further apart. So for males will not have an acute Q angle as much as a female. And this female is going to turn around so you can see from the back where the location of the Q angle is in relation to the butt area, and also where the hip is at in relation to the butt area. So when she turns around right here, you can see that the location of that Q angle and the hip is slightly above the bum line, but regardless is below the crotch from the front. So I always tell people, if you have difficulty in trying to determine the gender of someone from the front, try to see if you can find a picture of the person from the back. Because once you see anybody from the back, you're going to noticeably tell that's a female and that's a man, because of how acute the Q angle and the wider hips show from the back. So if this was a man, all right, this Q angle will start further apart away from this bum line. It will be further apart up right around here, so far away from this bum line, not so close as you see here with this female. And let me show you an example in a picture. So the example I'm using right here is Iggy Azalea. I'm going to pull this picture side by side so you guys can see the comparisons here. Let me try to reduce the picture so it can fit into the screen. As you can see right here, here is Iggy Azalea right here. Iggy Azalea's bum line is right here, but the Q angle is so high up away from it. Why is that? Because Iggy Azalea is male and not a woman. So Iggy Azalea is portrayed as female on the TV sets by the people who own the TV sets and produce everything that you watch, which happens to be the Vatican. But Iggy Azalea is no female, is 100% male. A mutilated male, because a lot of people think there is such a thing as transgenderism. There is no such thing. It's just a nice word that we use, or the nice word that the Vatican invented for us to believe that people can change sexes and gender. You can't change sexes and gender because you can't change the skeletal structure. If you could change the skeletal structure, then yes, but you can't change it. The hips of a female will be below the crotch. The hips of male will be above the crotch, as you can see right here in Iggy Azalea, because the Q angle determines the location of your hip. As you can see, it is so far away from the bum line right here because Iggy Azalea is male and this is female, with very close hips and Q angle to the bum line. All right, so let's get into the transvestigation of the people from KISS so we can wrap up this video quick. We didn't have a lot of pictures of Vinnie Vincent because she's very, very obvious to be a female. I wonder why people would even sit with her and call her a he. They would notice that this is a very strange looking, man. So you can see right here, Vinnie Vincent has, I'm sorry, I don't know what's wrong. Let me try to bring up this picture again because I think I have some sort of error right here. Okay, so it's the picture here again. As you can see, Vinnie Vincent has an arch in the back and the long butt of a female, because remember, a female's torso, half of it takes up the pelvis. So a female's torso starts right just below her rib cage, all right? And a female's pelvis starts just right below her rib cage and stretches all the way down to the hips, and it takes almost half the length of the torso. So female has a longer butt because of that, because all this is butt area, longer and a wider butt because of a wider and longer pelvis necessary for childbirth. And that is what Vinnie Vincent has here, because she is 100% female and not a man. Just been masquerading around as one for too long, because the Vatican is in the business of taking young children and mutilating them and turning them into products so they can use to influence our world and run our reality for us. Let's go to the next picture. of Vinnie Vincent, you can see that this is a woman right here, and this is why you can't make any, conclusions about someone's gender based on the appearance, because you can see right here that Vinnie Vincent has an Adam's apple, but the skeletal structure, the primary skeletal structure, the primary difference which determines the gender, shows you that she's female, right? So she's not a man in any way, not a man. You've been looking at a woman all along in Vinnie Vincent. Let's go to another picture of Vinnie Vincent right here, and you can see the way Vinnie Vincent sits right here. This is a woman sitting down. You can see how wide she sits, and the way she sits, the curves, and even the heels, that you're looking at a woman, but they call her a he, Vinnie Vincent, as we read to you the profile that calls her a he. So let's move over. Those are just the three pictures we had from Vinnie Vincent. We didn't have a lot. We're looking right now at Gene Simmons from Kiss. As you can see, Gene has the acute Q angle that's below the crotch. Now, this is where Gene Simmons' crotch is at, but they made this sort of fabrication for whatever a crotch harness or whatsoever that she's wearing, to give you an illusion that the crotch is all the way down here, when it's actually around here, that where it stops, because the Gene Simmons is 100% female and not a man, as is being portrayed to us by the Vatican. The Gene Simmons here, 100% female, not a man. Here's another picture of Gene Simmons with his so-called wife in Shannon Tweed. When you people go around there thinking you've been looking at a heterosexual couple, not knowing that you're looking at two homosexuals here, you can see that Gene Simmons has an acute Q angle that's below the crotch, as you can tell from that walk, because she's 100% female and not a man anyway. Let's go to another picture. Here is Gene Simmons again, and you can still notice that acute Q angle right here. And the way Gene Simmons claps his hands here is how females claps their hand, because when a female claps her hands, because of the shorter arms that most women have, you will notice that the hand claps is going to be high above the pubic region, as it is right here with Gene Simmons. Because if this was male who have naturally longer arms and never short arms, you will notice that the claps arm will be right at where the crotch is, or even below it, especially for black males who have longer limbs and arms. So this is what Gene Simmons is exhibiting here, because she is 100% female and not a man in any way. Let's go to another picture of Gene Simmons. I hope I didn't move too fast. Okay, the next picture right here, you can still see that, crotch harness that's given to Gene Simmons to give us an illusion that the crotch is longer when it's not. But you can notice that the crotch, not the crotch is longer, but where it actually ends will look like a male crotch. But when you're looking at this, you can notice how long the pelvic region is, because a man's pelvic region is never going to be this long. You can notice how long the pelvic region of Gene Simmons is, and the acute Q angle. You can notice the curves here, right? See the acute Q angle from here, because Gene Simmons is 100% female and not a man. There's so many other members, I think, of KISS that are actually not the sex they claim, but we don't have time to look into them today. We'll just do Gene Simmons and Vinnie Vincent. In the future, we'll come back and do some more. All right. So Gene Simmons here is 100% female and not a man anyway. I'm sorry if I'm messing up the name of Vinnie Vincent and Gene Simmons together. Sometimes, they all sound alike, so I might make that mistake, but we're talking about Gene Simmons right now. Let's go to another picture of Gene Simmons. Here's Gene Simmons again with that, fake crotch enhancement to make it look like it's longer, that the crotch ends here like a man, all right? Shorter length, but the way it droops down to look like a man's crotch, but it's not, because it's a female right here, and this crotch ends right around here. That's why you have this acute Q angle, because Gene Simmons is 100% female. Let's go to another picture of Gene Simmons. Here is Gene Simmons here trying to make it look like he's a man with the way he stands, but you can see how awkward that arm around the waist is, because that's the female pelvis and not the male waist that he's trying to put his hands on. Because he's trying to give you an appearance that is a man's waist, but that's how it looks awkward with that arm placement right there. It doesn't fit right in, because that's the female pelvis. Gene Simmons is 100% female. Here's the best. We've always been talking about this for a very long time, but we've never had a good example to show you on TV. And we want to thank Gene Simmons for making this example possible. We've always told you that as a woman, that if you notice that from your elbows will never, if you stretch out your arms, it's never going to be straight, because the arms of a woman always follows the hourglass figure and shape that a woman has on her body, because females are shaped in an hourglass manner. So the arms also are shaped that way. So if you're female and you lift your arms up like Gene Simmons is doing right here, with your palms facing up in this position, you will notice that your arms angle out from the elbows because it wouldn't be straight. A woman's arms are not straight. They angle out and follow the hourglass figure that a female has. And this is what Jean Simmons is exhibiting right here. And we want to thank her for that. So showing us how the woman's arms angles out in an hourglass figure to show to follow the hips rather. And this is what Jean Simmons is exhibiting here, because Jean Simmons is 100% female and not a man. Let's go to another picture of Jean Simmons. You can notice the long butt of a female right here, how long the butt ends right here, because that's where the hips are, and the Q angle right there, because Jean Simmons is 100% female and not a man in here with Shannon Tweed. So if they've ever had kids, who knows where they got those kids from, because that's what the Vatican does, by, this taking children. And it's a very, very sad and horrendous story, but that's what they do. Let's go over to the next picture. Here's Jean Simmons again. As you can see, there's a kid's Q angle, even though the picture is very blurry, shows you that it's below the crotch, because Jean Simmons is 100% female. Let's go to another picture of Jean Simmons. You can still notice that a cute Q angle right here, because Jean Simmons is exhibiting an hourglass figure, and it's below the crotch because she's 100% female, not a man in any way. I think that's the last picture that we had on today's video. I hope you guys learned something. I'm sorry that it was a long video. We will always have to tell you the truth. And so with that, we leave all our information on the screen for the book, because we know it's a necessity that you have to get that book if you're really interested in understanding the whole story from A to Z, and seeing how all things fit and how the puzzle all works together. And so with that, we leave you with these words. Please always look with your eyes, but see with your brain.